regret nothing.
Welcome to the Running with Scissors I Regret Nothing podcast with Vince Desi, MikeJ, and John Merchant.
How you doing, everybody? Here we are, Running with Scissors, the I Regret Nothing podcast. It's me, MikeJ, with Vince Desi and John Merchant. Say hi, guys.
What's happening?
Hey.
So this is our first edition, something we've been meaning to do for a really long time. We tend to bullshit between each other, and we never make it public. So this is a chance for you to hear what we have to say to each other in private, in a more public setting. So let's get the introductions out of the way. Vince has been in the industry for a long time, so why don't you tell us more about that, Vince?
Well, Jesus, it's kind of hard to really begin, but in a quick synopsis, I guess it was around 1980, and a little-known company called Atari came to New York City. They were based originally out in Sunnyvale in the heart of Silicon Valley. And at that time, I was a headhunter on Wall Street. So when Atari came, they were looking for people that had coding experience and digital art, all new things. So I was very fortunate to basically, I guess in the role of what today would be more like a producer, I started putting together teams with mostly programmers. And in those early days, believe it or not, a single individual who was typically a programmer actually also did their own art and in some cases audio. And then through a certain evolution, became 2 artists per game plus 1 audio person to support the entire New York office. Long story short, that translated into another company called RSP, where we started designing and developing licensed games, actually beginning with Spy vs. Spy on the Commodore 64, which led to doing titles for Big Bird and Bert and Ernie and Cookie Monster, all things to do with Children's Television Workshop. And then the other great one, which I liked, and I don't recall too often, was we did the very first WWF game, and that was with Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage. Really cool stuff. I mean, great stories that I'm sure in future podcasts we could get into some of the real behind the scenes crazy
segue from children's games into what we do today, which is,
well, I mean, look, from learning how to count to Mad Dog Fake Wrestling to, I guess it was around 92, I decided to leave New York City, come to the West Coast, settled on Tucson, Arizona. And in Tucson, we actually came out here with a couple of big contracts with Nintendo and with Sega at the time. And we were still doing children's games. And I think we did Hunt for Red October based on the movie. And back then, Nintendo actually had this scope gun. It was really cool. We actually built it in as an item to be used in the Red October game. And then a couple more years of that. And actually, high point being I got to meet Bill Hanna from Hanna and Barbera, something I really like. But around 96, getting really tired, the team was getting really tired of making basically what was called children's games, educational games, edutainment games. We decided to create our own property because the truth of the matter is, not only from a financial standpoint, but just if you're not doing something you love, you friggin' get, I don't know. For me, I get bored when I take a crap, okay? So it's like I like things to change. I like things to be different every day of my life. So we decided to do our own thing. And at that time, we had a really big budget. I think I had a $10,000 credit line on my MasterCard. So the idea was, okay, how can we make a game? And I knew at that time that the game had to also be outrageous, but in terms of fun. I really never thought the insanity that we put into the original Postal, I really honestly never expected it to be so heavily criticized or even condemned. And then obviously once that all occurred, especially I guess at that time I was younger and I was much more defensive. So I really didn't like the fact that, people were fucking coming after us. And I was like, I really was repulsed by the idea of, here we are, we're working our asses off. We're a great group of people. We're doing our own thing. We're making a great game. It's a lot of fun. And then the fucking government's trying to tell me what I'm supposed to do and not do. And I'm hearing it left and right from Postmaster General. I mean, all this bullshit. So long story short, that's really how Postal began. And Running with Scissors, even from day one, I said that Running with Scissors is going to be like a club. And to this day, I'm very proud to say we've been able to keep that feeling. And kind of fast forward, it's 19 years later. God knows, everything that's occurred. I mean, these are endless stories.
Yeah, we'll move on to the other games. We'll move on to the other games in a little bit.
Yeah, well, it'll all happen. But, fortunately, we just released Postal Redo. And I love more than anything the fans' reaction. And to everyone out there, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's enough of me for now, and I'll interject with some great sperm stories. So
well, that's Vince Desi. Vince is the CEO of Running with Scissors. He's been here forever, and you guys know who he is. So, John Merchant, you're our we'll put in quotes resident producer. Everybody here is in a different part of the world right now. Running with Scissors is sort of based out of Tucson. Me and Vince live in Tucson, but he spends most of his time in New York. And currently he's in New York. I'm in Tucson. And John is in the relatively south part of the UK, right?
That's right, in the southwest, near the city of Bristol. I'm the producer for Running with Scissors, or project manager, depending on how you look at it. We also do a lot of development. And I joined around about 11 years ago after doing a stint as a community modder. I can still remember the day very well, that when originally Running with Scissors were applying for people for the Postal 3 project. And back when it was all looking like it was going to be a good game.
When it had a lot of gusto and it was going to be great, yeah.
It was going to be great. I applied just, for fun, really. I wasn't ever expecting Vince to get back to me and tell me I had the job, considering I lived in the UK and my experience back then was relatively low. I didn't get into game development at all until Postal. It was Postal 2 that inspired me to get into it.
You started with the Eternal Damnation team, though, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Before then, it was multiplayer stuff that I was into mostly. That's how I got into Postal mostly originally, and then we got into the Eternal Damnation mod, and it just kind of escalated from there.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Eternal Damnation is our one major fan mod. It's it's a full game, and John was basically in charge of that. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, you can get Eternal Damnation. It's not on Steam yet, but you can still download it outside of Steam on ModDB, I believe. So
yeah, we've done a lot of work on that mod since. We haven't released any of the updates, and the plan is to try and get that ready for the 20th anniversary next year, if not before, and then we'll put it on Steam and it will come out as part of our 20th anniversary pack. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's come a long way.
That's the plan. So everybody keep an eye out next year. We're going to do the 20th anniversary for all things Postal. We won't tell you what's in it yet because we don't even fucking know, but we're going to figure it out, and we'll get some good shit in there for you. So, that's John, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm MikeJ. I started with Running with Scissors almost 16 years ago. I went to high school with Vince's son, and we used to hear tall tales of this video game development company that his dad had, and we just didn't believe him. And one day I took a ride because he needed a ride to the office, and I figured I was driving him to 7-Eleven or something like that. And as it turns out, it was the Running with Scissors office, and me and Vince made friends. And fast forward about 3 years from that, he just happened to know my brother through someone, and he told me to come in, and we laughed, and he said, "You're going to work here." And I said, "Great." So, go almost 16 years I started at this company, and it's been a long road, and we've done a lot of shit, a lot of good, a lot of bad, and we're still around. And we're really only around because of the people that play our games. So anybody that's listening now or listening later, thanks for coming out. And, if there's anything you want to hear us talk about, make sure you send it into us because we don't have a problem talking about anything for the most part. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, our first real order of business here is to talk about the Redux launch and how it's gone and the reception and basically what came with it, which ended up being the reban of our games in Germany. So, Postal Redux was really our way of saying thank you after the long haul we've put in here and the people that have dedicated time to us. We wanted to remake the real for the first game that, didn't have the treatment that we wanted even 19 years ago. So we just started and we're really proud of the product we put out. What do you have to say, John?
Yeah. It's coming along really well, actually. I'm really surprised, and have not surprised as in I didn't think people would like it, but the almost universal praise to anybody that's downloaded it and tried it, because when you're remaking a game, it's a very delicate thing. You need to respect the original, but also bring in the modern sensibilities, and that we really seem to have hit the right balance there with Redux. And we currently have, I think it's a 96% approval rating.
Yeah, just under 96% approval rating on Steam, which is fantastic.
We couldn't be happier with that, and we're sure once the co-op comes to it, and we've added the extra special delivery maps and some brand new content, that people will be even happier.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we will be updating Postal Redux soon to include multiplayer, co-op specifically, and all the special delivery maps, as well as a few new maps on top of that. And go ahead, Jim.
What about the Japanese maps?
Yes, they are coming.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to do them too, right?
Yep. So all the postal power-up maps, all the postal special delivery maps, a few new maps, and co-op modes. So it's...
But in the Japanese maps, I don't want anybody to mislead anyone. We don't have little Japanese kids in uniforms.
No. That's not what we do.
Right. So I just want to, we're often blamed for stuff that we don't do. So I just want to go on record officially now. It's a nice, clean, wholesome family product.
Yeah. We make children's games for adults is what you're saying. So, for 15 years you made real children's games, and then you made games that children like to play. So,
well, I think especially since this is the first broadcast, a couple of things that maybe we should, say, get out of the way, go on the record, whatever you want to call it. From the very beginning, I've always felt that Running with Scissors, just by choice of the name itself, we really enjoy basically doing what we want to do. And also what we want to do is just, I'm not do what everybody else does. But at that same time, that doesn't mean to be perverted, or if you watch, like I see comedians. I don't think a comedian has to say fuck in every sentence in order to be a funny person.
No.
For us, for games, and we like to call it mature games, mature audience, not adult, because adult signifies something else. But despite what we did previously, despite what certain periodicals like Wall Street Journal and other major news publications, despite what they wrote about incorrectly, knowingly incorrectly, we've never used children in any shape, way, or form. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's completely look, video games is an entertainment business. Games are meant to be played. Some you win, some you lose, but always the essence of any game is you should be playing a game because it's fun. Okay. And I just like to say, anybody that wants to condemn us, you're welcome to condemn us. Hopefully you've got a tight enough asshole that you could take it when we basically come back with the truth.
Well, if their asshole's tight enough, they're not going to be able to take it. We're gonna like giving them the fucking pain, but we want them to have a loose asshole so they can take the pain.
Nothing like a little share the pain.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
that's
and
just
we didn't have kids, but we did have Gary, and Gary did look and act like a child.
Well,
so
we did have Gary.
We simulated children by hiring an adult version of a child named Gary.
Yeah, and we also had Vern in the Postal feature film.
Very different people. Very different people.
He's even smaller. But, what are you going to do? But anyway, I just want to, I welcome any questions or any inquiries. And I really kind of enjoy this whole opportunity because this is giving us a chance to answer anybody's questions directly. And most importantly, we're here. We don't shy from who we are, what we've done. And I'd like to just make sure that we're clear about, who we are, what our purpose is.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we are going to field some questions from the chat room, but what I'm going to I'm going to have Kurt log some questions, and while we talk, and eventually we'll get back to those, so we can answer them directly.
Great, however you want to.
So you already started to cover the topic, but Postal as a brand came about, in 96, came out in 97. You were making children's games, which were extremely unfulfilling. They paid the bills. And they were constant. They were building up a huge team, but nobody was enjoying what they were making. And it was just time to make something that everybody, kind of wanted to play, and something that was different, which it was extremely different at the time. There was a lot of violent shooters, there was a lot of games that people could kill, but there was no games where you just had no real mission. You just were shooting at people that were shooting at you, and there were innocent bystanders running around, and they weren't wearing spacesuits, and they weren't aliens.
Right.
So,
yeah, that was one of the big early distinctions, or first time. Look, I mean, we set people on fire, which to this day I just find it ecstatic. Again, this is all about fun. I mean, to me, it was like, I remember when we were just in the early stages, and it was like, okay, so, how many characters can we have on the screen at once? And how many people can we set on fire? And so then that's when I thought of, I said, oh, fuck. I was like, you mean we could have a group thing? So I was like, in my head, I was like, I instantly realized I want a marching band. I want a marching band. How much that's real. I mean, just
when I came to visit the office to get the game for the first time, I was actually in the marching band at Catalina Foothills. So, I was a big fan, and you gave me copies of the game, signed everything. I still have all that stuff laying around, and it was much appreciated as a kid who knew nothing about the industry and was brought in for no reason. And it was a big game for the time, and it actually ended up becoming something that it was not. And it was banned in a lot of countries. It was taken in front of the Senate by Joseph Lieberman, and it really started this huge PR campaign that, for all intents and purposes, didn't do anything but give us a long-term name. It actually put the game below what it was supposed to do at the time. The store shelves took it off. Panasonic said, "Go fuck yourself." I mean, it really took a shit in the wrong way, considering everything else was getting away with it. So it was, I don't know, you lived that more than I did. I hung out at the office a couple times, but that was you. That was all you. So tell us some more about
that. The shame at that time was that we had a major publisher, which was Ripcord Games. They were a new publisher. They were actually a new brand that was established by Panasonic Interactive Media of America. I think it was PIMA. Interesting, because that's PIMA. That's the county where Running with Scissors office is. I just thought of that.
Serendipity.
Anyway, unfortunately, when the shit hit the fan, unlike an Activision or a Rockstar that was firmly entrenched in the video game industry and had the will and the deep pockets to fight, Panasonic folded. They just folded quicker than a beach stick. I mean, it was, it really happened all so fast that I was like, we were so high one moment, and then the next moment it was like it was all over. And I was fighting with, this doesn't make sense. What's going on? How could we, So I immediately went into survival mode, and we had to find ways, and it's a really interesting thing. Here we are doing this podcast, streaming all along for people to take a look at their leisure. Back then, 19 years ago, there was a little company called Stream Theory. I believe they came out of Sweden. It was the very first company I knew about that was streaming. And we were making arrangements because we had to find ways to distribute the game, because after 2 weeks of being on the shelves, we got pulled. Panasonic folded. It was one big mess. And if I recall correctly, it took something like 18 hours to download the game.
Well, it was depending on what kind of dial-up modem you had.
Then, so. Yeah, but that gives you an idea of what we dealt with as a company, from the technical challenge, the political challenge, yet the thing that always has remained to this day, people wanted it. And, we were just recently at Comicon in Phoenix last week, Jay.
That's actually a question from the fans. They want to know how that was, so we might as well segue into that. So.
What, Comicon in Phoenix?
Yeah, he was just asking how was Phoenix Comicon, so if you're going to talk about it, you might as well elaborate.
Yeah, well, I loved it. It was my first Comicon. I mean, I'm well aware of them. It was the first one I ever attended, or the first one we ever, basically set up a booth at. And what I loved about it more than anything else was, here's this public event, thousands and thousands of people, and they all are coming peacefully, mind you, to enjoy whatever there is their own personal fantasy, what a great thing. This is America at its best. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was so humbled that we were there as part of it, and to have people come up. So many people knew us. So many people thanked us. So many people. I met people that said to me, "Hey, I met you 10 years ago at a show. I'm in the industry because of you." Super high compliment. And then there were so many people that played. They had not ever, they've heard of the game, never seen it. They're console players, or they, now they're 18. They heard of it before, but they never got to play it. Every person, not one person, other than that young bitch Jay that you said was a super millennial, because she wouldn't even want to fucking.
She didn't even want to take her head off of her phone. Yeah, no, that
right. I mean, other than everybody, literally every single person played it, loved it, and was like, "Oh my god, this is so much fun." We had young kids playing. I mean, what was the youngest? Maybe a kid that was 7 or 8.
Yeah, 7. And just to preface this, their parents were with them, and every single kid that came up, we told their parents, just so you know, this is a very violent game that's made for adults, and they were like, "Oh no problem." So. Yeah,
that one kid was sitting on his mother's lap, and she's loving it. I mean, so this was just crazy fun.
Yeah, random story. I just got a message from our friend Royce down in Colombia, and he said through his travels, he just met a guy through Sweden who he's gotten really close with, and they started talking. It turns out the guy's a hardcore gamer, and he found out that, Royce is really good friends with us, and he totally freaked out about it. So you got this big fan in Sweden that just happens to be traveling through South America with our friend Royce, and they just get to talk about our title. Which, that's the kind of thing that blows my mind, because, we do this, and, I just go home and laugh about it all the time, this little shit that we put together. And when I actually find people that know what it is, it's actually kind of mind-boggling to me, because, we know we're not on the level of GTA or anything like that these days, but we do have something that people like, and it's cool. Like, it can affect people, and, people live and die this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a really big movie buff. I read a lot of movie stuff, so, if I randomly met somebody on the street that made something, I'd kind of geek out too. So it's cool to see people do it to us in the same sense, because we don't even think about it like that. We just make this thing, laugh about it. And when somebody else is like, "Oh my god, I love your game," it's like, "Oh cool, thanks for playing, man," because we don't really get to, the one thing about this industry is you're not really overly interacting with people in person. So when you see somebody that is a really big fan, it's very it makes the world feel smaller. It's
like you say, it's the in-person thing. I mean, more so myself than you guys. I mean, from the very beginning, it was 19 years ago, so you can imagine what the internet was like, and email. But I, back then, and to this day, so many people know, if you write me, I write you back. And what a great honor. I mean, and I love when I get the email that says, "Holy shit, I never expected you to answer me." Well, why not?
I get that every single time.
Why not? And it's because I guess a lot of people, or whatever, they write to developers, and for whatever reason, it just, I can't imagine why people don't.
Well, it's no different from developer to developer. I mean, I have friends in the industry, and they respond to me. But if I write somebody I don't know, I mean, that's a real crapshoot if I'm getting a response, because, everybody's too fucking busy for everything, and it's like, whatever, there's time in the day for things, and one of them is to respond to people that want to talk to you, even if it's in the fucking thousands.
That, what was his name? Adam, the writer for Mashable, over a month ago, I got an email from him, and he wrote something like the subject was "long shot." And he wrote about who he is, Mashable, he'd like to do an interview, and he goes, "I know you probably will never reply because, they're on a certain, they take a certain position, I should say, and they consider us to be whatever." I immediately wrote the guy back. He was surprised. I was, of course. I mean, we don't fear questions. We don't listen. Difference of opinion is fine. I always tell everybody, as long as you're honest. If you like something, don't like something. If you agree, you don't agree. It's
we hate lots of things.
Yeah, I mean,
and we publicly say, we'll tell you on the show how many things we fucking hate. So.
Yeah. So again, hopefully this show of ours will actually help people not only understand us, but it'll help people and help us too to understand and have a greater communication with us and also themselves with whomever their families, their friends. If we can all learn the value and how to improve communication. Well, let me tell you, I'll be ecstatic if it starts right here with "I regret nothing," because what better value can we give or share with anyone other than communication? That's a fantastic thing. So this is, we're using technology for a good reason.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
we're getting another question from quite a few people, and this is something we should have touched on a little earlier. And there's not much we can really say other than what we know. And the reban in Germany. I mean, everybody saw the news, I would imagine, that there were a list of games that are all roughly 15 years old, which includes us and a bunch of other games that are not really played anymore, but they were all removed